Hello everyone, my name is Rushi Purohit and I will talk about MITRE's recommended practices for secure code review and lessons learned from reflecting on over 300 such engagements for the past decade. So, what do I mean by a secure code review? A secure code review is a specialized task performed at the end of software development lifecycle, typically in the testing phase, that attempts to identify security flaws that occur during a normal coding process. The goal of the secure code review is to help improve the overall security of an application. It is worth noting that although security should be part of all software development lifecycle phases, we will be focusing only on the testing phase as that is where our secure code review is conducted. It is also important to note that it does not replace typical peer reviews and they should continue to be performed as normal. And lastly, it is not a silver bullet. Secure code review should be part of a holistic security testing that includes many other efforts like dynamic analysis, pen testing, and so forth. So I'll now share the common use cases that a secure code review can be leveraged for. At MITRE, we use them for our internal and external application development that, as part of our InfoSec requirements, must go through our rigorous security testing. MITRE, as an operator of 7FFRDC, supports a variety of government customers. So we want to make sure that we're complying with their quality and security standards too. Thirdly, MITRE, as a not-for-profit organization chartered to work in public interest, develops and produces many applications for open source communities. So we pride ourselves in, making sure that those applications meet our rigorous standards as well. And finally, MITRE is asked to consult on a variety of government or contractor developed code as part of an independent review. So we want to make sure that we help out with their security testing as well. Now that we're clear on different use cases, let's look at some guidelines which will help streamline the entire code review process. Firstly, the review team is in place to support the developers, not to prove that they are smarter than the developers or to judge them. This is a collaborative process where the goal is to make the code better. Secondly, it is important to lay out the ground rules. This deals with making sure that all parties involved are fully clear on what role everyone is playing and is expected from each party. Thirdly, it is also important to maintain your professionalism throughout the process. As developers, you need to understand that the goal of the review is to identify issues before they become a problem. A good review will always identify something, so you should not take that personally. As members of the review team, you need to respect the developers and not try to imply incompetence or lack of skill. Next is to make sure that you properly understand what the scope is like and properly understand the code before you agree to a schedule. This deals with project management aspects of proper planning, and I'll introduce some of that via different models in the next slide. And finally, it is always a good idea to take notes throughout the process, as some of that can and should be included in the final report for completeness. I'll now share different models for secure code reviews that can be leveraged. It begins with what we call a developer interview. This is a meeting between the development team and the review team before any coding occurs. This involves going over plans, discussing strategies, suggesting solutions to common issues, etc. The goal is to give developers a head start, add security, and reduce issues during coding. The level of effort involved includes 2 staff members for 2 hours each, and it's purposely kept at a high level to not overwhelm the development team while still identifying critical security concerns and ways to guard against them. Next is what we call a verbal review. This is a post-development meeting with the development team to gain an accurate understanding of what features were created, how, and what security mitigations were put in place. This saves the review team time, helps them determine high-risk areas of the source code, understand developer trends, and forms respect between the two teams. This too is kept at a high level with the total of 1 hour for the discussion. Next, we have what we call an automated review. This is where static analysis tools come in. They model the source code and automatically find potential flaws. However, they are not a silver bullet and are best leveraged for an initial and quick review of an application. It is recommended that multiple tools be leveraged if possible. Each tool used should appropriately be scanned, and a high-level analysis of those raw results should be shared with the development team for further action. Our research shows that it is best accomplished with the total of 8 hours per tool per staff member. The fourth type of review is called a manual review. This requires embracing the challenges of manually inspecting the code. However, it is extremely important to provide a comprehensive assessment. The goal is not to review every line of code, rather understand what the code as a whole is doing and use the information gained from a verbal review to navigate the appropriate areas. Remember, this is a collaborative process, so don't be afraid to ask questions of the original developer if you're stuck. Once you've gone through the code manually, the next step is to discuss your individual findings with the review partner. Both of you should be on the same page with your findings and make sure that you agree with everything. Then the next step is to capture those findings in a tailored report that can be consumed by all parties involved. 24 hours per staff for less than 100,000 lines of code seems to work best for this type of model. And finally, the last step is to verify mitigation. This involves, verifying the actual mitigations that were implemented of the original findings, as well as reviewing plan of actions and milestones, and providing any insights that have been laid out for that. I'll now talk about what a good findings report should contain based on our experience. Findings report is an outcome out of a manual review process, so it is crucial that it contains the right level of information. Information such as what the code review process was like, which tools were leveraged, why, which findings out of the tools as well as the manual reviews turned out to be true positives based on the application's context and other information must be highlighted. For findings themselves, you should consider including information like the file name, along with their line numbers, whether that be source or sync, as well as ratings and their definitions are appropriate. Note that these are not risk ratings, as that is beyond the scope of a secure code review. Rather, they help the development team prioritize their mitigation efforts. For writing a good findings description, you should consider putting yourselves in developer shoes and giving them the information they would want to know. For example, showing data and control path for that appropriate finding, as well as identifying why that is a particular issue and how do you recommend that the development team consider mitigating that issue. You can also consult with CWE to get more accurate information on that particular issue, as that also provides good remediation strategies. So that was everything I had on MITRE's secure code review process. I will now be drawing on lessons learned out of our decade of experience, and hopefully you'll be able to relate to many of them and, if appropriate, apply within your own organizations. To begin, providing just different types of secure code reviews is a must, as previously discussed. It is critical to provide options, as different projects have different needs, funding structures, resources, resource constraints, etc. So this allows you to support all of them and build strong relationships with them. Lesson 2 deals with understanding developers' approaches to coding. This, as we also discussed, can be done in pre and post development. However, it must be done that you take time to learn about the application, build relationships with the development team, as well as understand their approaches to security mechanisms. Information gathered in this phase can help jumpstart the review and significantly reduce the time a reviewer spends trying to understand the code. Moving on, lesson 3 is to use multiple static analysis tools if possible. This is because the strengths of each differ and complement others, which provides for more comprehensive coverage. Lesson 4 is about focusing on the big picture. This applies specifically to the manual review. It is crucial that one does not review every line of code, rather gain an understanding of what the code as a whole is attempting to do, and concentrate on the part associated with the security mechanisms. These are, for example, things like authentication, authorization, data validation, session management, error handling, logging, encryption, and more. On to lesson 5 that focuses on checking small finite set of CWEs at a given time. Obviously, we are limited to the number of things we can look for in parallel. So to keep the quality high, it is best to choose a subset of weaknesses to manually investigate. This will be influenced by the languages and technologies used, the type of application and its purpose, and many other factors. Lesson 6 is to make sure that you stick to the intent of the review, which is to use the static analysis techniques and not attempt to run the code. Dynamic analysis is important and should be a part of the holistic security testing. However, it differs in its approaches and is best left to be performed by a different group than the secure code review. Lesson 7 is not to assess the level of risk. A true risk determination requires a lot more knowledge than what is available to a secure code review team. Therefore, a secure code review should not make judgments about the overall risk. The review team should rate the importance of each finding so that the development team can prioritize their mitigation efforts. And finally, lesson 8 is to follow up on the review points. It is important to be available to the development team and project management team after the review to address any questions or concerns that may arise. You should also assist with the mitigation strategies and verify the mitigations once implemented, as well as POEMs. All right, that's all I had to share. Thank you for listening. I'll take any questions you may have now. Thank you.